So welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Doogie White, one of the finest rock vocalists around, having played with Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, Yngwie Malmsteen, I think I pronounced that right for the first time in my life, Michael Schenker.
You didn't, actually.
I said to my wife, I said, the chances of me getting this correct is slim. Please, Doogie. It's Yngwie Malmsteen.
No, it's Yngwie
Malmsteen.
Malmsteen. Yngwie Malmsteen.
Thank you. This, considering I've got so many of his albums behind me somewhere, and of course Michael Schenker, and your most recent project, of course, Alcatrazz.
Yeah.
Now, the new album, Take No Prisoners, is out very soon, or is it out already?
It's out now. It came out on Friday.
And it's a Take No Prisoners heavy metal album, which is fantastic. I've been listening to it.
Did you hear it?
Yeah, I've heard it. Yes.
Good.
I've got it near me, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to talk about that very, very soon. But I just want to dip into your past a little bit. Now, this might be incorrect, but I was a member of the Deep Purple Appreciation Society in the late 70s, and I believe so were you.
Yes, I was. I had the wee badge with Ritchie's face on it. Yeah. No, I had that. I was a member of that.
Yeah. I had a feeling that you were, and
that and the Bruce Lee fan club.
I wasn't in that one.
Okay.
Now, what was it about? Because obviously back there in the 70s, many of us joined these fan clubs because there was no internet, no social media. So to get closer to our rock and roll idols, the fanzine was the way to do it. What was it about Deep Purple in particular that drew you into them?
The first Deep Purple album I ever heard was Come Taste the Band.
Ooh.
And my brother and I, we were just kids. I think I was 15 and he was 13 or something. Yeah. But we used to sing together at church. And when we heard Coverdale and Hughes together on Come Taste the Band, it was like, wow, listen to those voices.
Yeah.
And so the next week, my mate Kenny Johnson brought in Byrne with the same voices, but a different guitar player. And I was like, oh my God, that guitar player's unbelievable. And he went, oh, you like that? Okay, here's Made in Japan, which is just behind you there.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, oh my God, who's that singer? And when you're that young, you know, you're like a sponge. You just kind of soak it all in. And because music, I think, honestly, I think music meant much more to us back then than it does now. It's very hit or miss. Because you would go out and you'd work your milk round or your paper round and get your paper money, and then you would go and you would buy the album of your choice, maybe that month, you know, and that's how much it was. And you'd play it to death, and you knew everything about it. Nowadays, you can just and what I liked as well was the way that the albums were structured, because that's the way the artist wanted you to hear it, right? You know, from Stormbringer, you know, through to Soldier of Fortune, and you had to flip it over. You couldn't just skip through it. And so you got I think, well, for me anyway, I got so much more out of the music than I do these days, where you can just go, okay, well, put on this album. Nah, I don't like that song. Nah, I don't like that song. And the choices are massive now. The choices are massive, and I don't. But I'm an old man now, so you know, my music will always go from the Monkees and the Beatles and David Bowie to Deep Purple, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, with and without whatever singer they had.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't really listen to music very much anymore, just because I've heard it all and I've heard the best.
I know what you mean, because similar, I would buy one album a month because that's all I could really afford.
Of course.
And then I would devour that album, so I could tell you what track 3 was on side 2, who produced it, who engineered it, and where it was recorded, and visualize all the photographs on the cover in my head.
Yeah.
And whereas now I can buy a box set with 19 albums in, and I can't remember what one I've played and what I haven't.
No. I agree. My wee mate, I mentioned him earlier, Kenny Johnson, he lent me his copy of Stormbringer while I was trolling all of this.
Yeah.
And I had a wee Philips record player, but the needle scratched the record, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for years and years and years, I had never heard Stormbringer or Lady Double Dealer, which starts the second side, in its entirety.
Because of the scratch.
When I bought the CD, I was like, oh my God, I missed so much, because it used to jump. Do you remember they used to jump?
Yeah, I do indeed. So obviously you were immersed in, 3 of the finest rock vocalists of all time, with Gillan, Coverdale and Hughes. But who else was an influence on you? Because your voice has got lots of light and shade. You can sing and you can rock out with any of the well-known rock singers, but you also have this very gentle way of interpreting songs. I'm thinking in particular the way you interpreted Temple of the King. You sing that beautifully. And it's, whereas I think in the hands of some other rock singers, it would just be like full on turned up to 11. But you have a lot of soul in your approach to that. Who else were you listening to in your formative years?
Lou Gramm.
Oh yeah, foreigner, yeah.
And at the start of the 80s, Michael McDonald.
Oh, Doobies.
Yeah. But after he'd left the Doobies, Michael McDonald, James Taylor, Billy Joel, and these guys all had. I always look for somebody whose voice I enjoyed. There's a lot. Neil Young's not the best singer in the world, right?
Yeah,
but he has something.
It has his own sound.
He just has something.
Yeah,
and that's what makes these guys unique. But I just stole from the best and put it in a blender, and it came out like this. And I'm just about to do a tour with a band, and I was listening to the stuff today, and it's an acoustic tour. Excuse me, sorry.
It's okay.
And it's an acoustic tour of Iron Maiden songs.
Really?
Yep. So they've asked me to do that. And I said, okay. And I was listening to it. And I'm thinking, my God, I could do Bowie over this,
Yeah.
Because it's got all that sort of jazzy piano and just guitar and drums, and I'm thinking, what voice can I find that works? Because I remember, and I'll drop a couple of names here, but Bruce and Ronnie and I sat at Grass Pop in Belgium, and we were all sitting there. And Ronnie just said to me, once you're in this metal groove, you can never leave, because we're not Bowie, we're not Peter Gabriel, and it just won't work. And I know Bruce tried to do it with his first solo album that never got released. It was called First Offense, and he was going off and experimenting, and nobody gave a shit. It never even got released because nobody gave a shit. Because he's the metal master these days.
Yeah, do you feel that going back to the early days of like the diversity in a lot of rock albums? I mean, like for instance, Sin After Sin by Judas Priest. It's a very diverse album with Last Rose of Summer and lots of different things. Whereas now, if you're a heavy metal band, then every track has to be a heavy metal song, doesn't it? When Priest tried to do Nostradamus all those few years ago, the fans just thought, nah.
I toured with them in that tour with a band called Tank.
Yeah,
and if I can, Algie Ward, who was the founder of Tank. Algie died last week, 10 days ago. So I'd just like to pay a wee bit of homage to him. I mean, I never met the man. and he was very ungracious to me all the time, so I should have hated him. but he wrote some great songs, you know, and he was a force of nature, and we've lost another one of the UK's great performers.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for that, Dougie. Now you had some. We into the mid-80s, I think, if I've got this right. You got La Paz and Midnight Blue were two of your early bands, and then you send a demo tape off in the early 90s to Ritchie Blackmore's management, but Candice finds this tape. I'm just trying to picture this because this is before the internet. Blackmore has jumped away from Deep Purple, and you have, again, with your history of being an uber fan all those years ago, of what was it? Did you think I could do that? He might be looking for somebody just like me.
I always knew I could do it.
Yeah.
I always knew I could do it because all these guys from Purple and Rainbow were the ones that I sort of, including Lou Gramm and a couple of other guys, but these were the guys that I learned all my chops from because they were all very different. You know, the only one that I could never master because he's so intense is Graham Bonnet. You know, he's so, you know, his vocals are utterly unique. You know, Ian Gillan is Elvis, David Coverdale is Paul Rogers, Glenn Hughes is Stevie Wonder, Joe Turner is Lou Gramm.
Yeah.
So if you take so as Doogie White, I took all of those guys, put them in a pot, mixed it around, came out, and that's what I did. I had no issue with me going and joining Rainbow. Not arrogantly, but I knew every song that he ever wrote better than he did.
Fantastic. I mean, when you went for the audition and you got the job, were you still the fan, or did you just see yourself as?
Yes.
I mean, obviously you weren't following him around with a copy of In Rock under your sleeve, saying, "Do you mind signing this?" when he went up to get a coffee.
No. No. I was never that. It was never that bad for me. Well, I never had any money. And the thing about Ritchie was that you would go and see him, and I would buy tickets for 2 nights, and he'd play in Edinburgh for 2 nights, and one night he would be absolutely rubbish.
Yeah,
I mean rubbish.
Yeah, I know. I saw him in Birmingham. He'd do one night was brilliant. The next night he was,
and the next night he was, and then the next day he'd be astonishing.
Yeah.
You know, and I was lucky enough to work with him when he was absolutely on his third set of Fire. You know, he was really on fire when we worked together. I don't know that he thinks he's got anything to prove, because he is one of the greatest guitar players of all time, right?
Yeah, totally.
But he was walking away from a band he created. And he was walking away from it, and he just went, "I'm going to just go out and blast these people's heads off." And I'd be surprised out of the. I don't know how many shows we did, but there was none that I would think were subpar in playing, his playing, or indeed the band, because the band, he picked really good players, and you know, Greg Smith, Chuck Burgey, Paul Morris, you know. And they just knew, they could see, and we could all read it, and that all worked really well. Whereas with the last version of the band that he had that I saw, they all looked terrified.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I've seen videos of you, and obviously the last version of the band. And obviously, I think again because of your singing style, because of the Lou Gramm and and all the different things you listen to. He had somebody who could sing from any period in Rainbow, whereas, Joe Lynn Turner, great vocalist, but I think he would have struggled more. Well, I know he was in Purple when they did Burn in the set, but I think watching you and listening to you sing Burn, your voice suited that. As you said, you weren't channeling Coverdale, you were channeling yourself. It's your own footprint on that, if you like. It's fantastic. But again, going back to Temple of the King, because that was Blackmore played that live in that tour
Yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah.
And you sang it fantastically as well. And that was a song that he hadn't done live before, I don't think. Did the band have any input on the songs to choose, or was it all him? Did he say, we're going to do this?
Well, Temple of the King came round because Ritchie, he didn't invite me. He told me I had to come over to America in the summer, at Christmas, 1994, to be his Christmas party. And we were to go down to his bar.
Yeah.
In his house.
Yeah.
And play to his 40 invited guests. And he said, "Do you know Temple of the King?" I went, "Of course I do." And that's where that came from. And the reason, if you see it or if you listen to it, it's not quite complete because we never really did it. Yeah, it was just a jam, and all of a sudden it kind of lost the place. I do it now. I do it in every show, every solo show I do, and I've got a good version worked out for it. That pays tribute to all the former members of Rainbow who are no longer with us. Yeah, and it works, and it's not just for them. It's for we lost a lot of people during COVID, and we lost a lot of people, because we're getting old, and people sing along with it and love it.
Because when you were with Rainbow, you were a young man,
34, man.
Yeah, but in the rock and roll arena, and like it's interesting how it changes. I remember taking my wife Sue to see Ian Gillan when he was out of Deep Purple and saying, "Look at him, Sue. He's nearly 50."
Yeah, I know. Oh,
and now they're still out there, and he's nearly 80.
God. Well, while we were working on the Stranger in a Zoll album, it was Ritchie's 50th birthday.
Yeah,
and I thought, oh bloody hell! And he was going, "I'm an old man now," and you think, and you look back now, and you think, Jesus, I'm 63 years old now. It's a long time ago, but it doesn't kill the passion. And it doesn't kill the groove, and guys like Jeff Beck and Dave Gilmour, and there's loads of great old by age
older
guitar players. Jeff's obviously gone now, but and these guys play great. Ritchie's heart's just not in the rock and roll anymore. He still, when he plays the acoustic, he plays magically.
Yeah,
when he plays the electric, he just sits and goes. And I know him. We spent months and months together, and we spent 3 years on the road. And I look at him, and I watched him in Birmingham, and I just thought, you really don't want to be here, mate. But you're making. And it's sad that it's about the money, because he was always about the music and all about trying to find the best band, and he picked the worst band he had. Romero's great. Don't get me wrong, Ronnie's great.
Yeah,
but when your 34-year-old singer is kicking your ass on the stage, you got to be a wee bit worried.
Yeah, did you
give him a career?
Well. And that's, I think, and I think you've said that elsewhere, is Blackmore has been a springboard for many people's careers.
Yes, he has.
He's been very good at that, at discovering people. Do you feel that towards the end of the Stranger in Us All tour, that not so much the fire was going out for him, but his eyes were somewhere else? As Ian Gillan would say, his eyes were one eye on Morocco, isn't it? He was probably thinking, I want to do something else. I've rocked as hard as I can.
Well, what he said to me, we did an American tour, and it was monstrous, really. It was my first American tour, but it was monstrous, because he'd been playing Long Island arenas and New York arenas and whatever. Yeah. And here we were playing bars, man, and we were in a couple of bars in Texas, and you're playing. And you could look just to the back of the bar, and there was a guy in a bucking bronco, and they were all cheering the bucking bronco, but not watching the band.
Oh, God, yeah.
And that must, it didn't bother me because it was my first time in America, and I was still getting to sing these great songs, and I was getting to sing with my favourite guitar player, and we had a great band. With John Michelli had replaced Bergie at that point. But that must have destroyed his soul.
Because
the last thing he said to me when they dropped me off at the airport was, I'm going to do Candy's album, and then you and I will get together and we'll write the next Rainbow album. And I was like, inspired, and this is great, and this is what we'll do. Of course, that never came to be, because Blackmore's Night was something new and exciting for him, and he found joy and excitement in it, And we did one more show after that, and it was just over. It was over for him, and it was over for me.
I think he escaped his past. I remember seeing him quite early on in Blackmore's Night, and I thought he's escaped from doing all these tracks. He hasn't got to be compared to doing Highway Star through his career. He'd escaped, in that respect. But I mean, there were some fantastic songs on that album. Aerial, I think, is probably my favourite. I think that was the last Rainbow Classic track.
Okay.
But your performance on there is fantastic. And of course, as we move on, this opened a whole world to you. So Rainbow might have finished, but for you, it was just now the real start of your musical career. I mean, you also sang with John Lord and did on his concerto couple of gigs, didn't you, as well?
Yeah. Well, my friend, he was my neighbour as well. His name was Steve Balsamo. And he did the revival Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was amazing. He was amazing, and he got involved with John. But then Stevie went on tour with Elton John, and he recommended me to John, and John said, "Well, fuck, if he can work with Ritchie Blackmore, he can work with me." we only did 3 shows, and I mean, but we had a great time, and it was a lovely time. I was never going to be replacing Steve, because Steve was the guy.
Yeah.
But John needed someone, and it was really good. It was really good fun, and 3 of the most exciting gigs I ever did, because I'd never done anything like that. That magnitude before.
With it,
but since then, I've done orchestral tours in Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, with Dan McCafferty from Nazareth, and Ripper Owens from Judas Priest, and it was a different discipline. With Ritchie and with Yngwie, it was, you never quite knew what was going to happen. So you had to be on the ball at all times.
Obviously singing with an orchestra or stringed instruments, I mean, again, although you're a rock singer, and as I've mentioned before about your Light and Shade, does it require a different approach to even microphone technique and how when you're singing with an orchestra rather than through a backing of Marshall amps? Is it different? Great question. Yes, it does, because you, as a singer, what you have to do is you if it's an acoustic set, even if you imagine Stargazer or Kill the King or whatever it is, done acoustically, you can't go out there and bawl your head off, because it won't make any sense. So you have to find a way around it. Now, luckily, I was able to watch what Steve did when he worked with John, because he said, "This is what we're doing," and it was Pictures of Home, Soldier of Fortune, and different things. And I could listen to what he did and then think, "You got that wrong. I'm going to do that better." Fantastic. Because we mentioned you mentioned Graham Bonnet, a great vocalist, but he's someone that, even when it's an acoustic track, he still seems to approach it as if he's singing a rock track. It's still kind of like, you can see the veins in his neck sticking out as he kind of really forces that out. Whereas I think for what you did watching a bit of footage of that. You're more gentle. It's like it fits in with the backing. It's not just you're listening to the music, not just yourself.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because I learn a lot from not listening. I mean, the listening thing I used to do a lot.
Yeah.
So you could find the voice. I mean, there was no point in me listening to Iron Maiden or Judas Priest or Rush. I didn't have those voice. I didn't have that voice, right? But I could watch singers singing and see what they were doing physically, and and you're right about Graham. I mean, Graham's a full on machine all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Even in rehearsals, when we're doing rehearsals, he didn't need a microphone. It was just like Jesus, okay. So we all have our different techniques, but you learn the technique by listening to people. But I learn it also from watching people doing things, and I can watch them and go. The first time I saw Graham, the first time I actually met him was at a Don Airy gig in Don's hometown. And Graham was there and he was doing When a Man Loves a Woman.
Oh, yeah.
In the regular key, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there's a mental key change.
Yeah.
And it was just rehearsals. And I'm thinking, fuck, he's never going to get this, right? It's like, how's he going to do this? And I watched, and like you say, the veins in the neck just did that. And my God, he hit it. And it was just the most beautiful moment and a beautiful sound because he's got a wonderful voice. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful voice.
Yeah, fantastic. So after John, we got Yngwie. Did he get in touch with you because of he's a big Blackmore fan, isn't he? Always has been.
Yeah,
he's never hidden from that. And now, did he see you as thinking, oh, ex-Rainbow vocalist? This is going to be an interesting match.
I met him. We'd done with Ritchie. We'd done 2 nights at the Hammersmith Odeon. And they have a green room, a bar up the stairs.
Yeah, I know.
Where the guy behind the bar does magic, and he was great. I don't remember what his name was, but he was brilliant. And Yngwie was there with Uli, John Roth.
Uli, from Scorpions, yeah.
And I went over, and Yngwie said, and I'd never met either of them. And Yngwie said, Uli, I'd like you to meet my next singer. It was Mark Bowles had done the War to End All War album, then had been fired. They got Joran Land in to do the tours. Joran Land quit. Mark Bowles went back, and then they came over to the UK, and Mark's like, "Oh, hell, I'm not going to do this anymore." And I was like, "Okay," and so they offered me the gig. And when I went in, and Yngwie gets a hard time from a lot of his previous singers, maybe because he didn't set the parameters of what he was doing out properly. But he came, I flew into Miami and he said, look, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to write the songs, write the melodies, write the lyrics. You'll sing them. Are you cool with that? And I went, okay, I'm fine with that. And him and I got on so well, man. We played tennis every morning. We were together for 7 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, we played 6.5 years or something, and it was a great time. And we were really good pals, and we just used to, I used to go around to his house and we would hang out. Yngwie doesn't have pals, right? I mean, he really doesn't. I was like, this is a great house. It must be, here's your barbecue. It must be great when you bring your friends around. I don't have any friends. And it's true, he doesn't really. But we had a great time together. And then he decided that my time was gone. And I was like, that's fine. That's what always happens with these mercurial guitar players, whether it's Ritchie or Yngwie or Michael. They changed the singer because they think that's going to make shit different. And the thing is that it doesn't make shit difference. It just means it's a different voice singing the same shit.
Yeah. Just touching on the fact that you said that he said, I'm gonna write the music, I'm gonna write the words, I'm gonna write the melody. Now, as a vocalist, you're emotionally charged. You're interpreting those words and you're singing. You're on stage. Did you at times leave the melody and go off, and ad lib, or find yourself letting go and going somewhere else within the song when you played live? Then, because as a vocalist, it must be
live, yes, of course,
yeah. But in the studio, you kept to the parameters.
Right, are you ready?
Yeah.
You ready for this? Right. So what he used to do is I had the lyric sheet, and he would sit down, Yngwie would sit down and play the guitar. So he'd go bam bam ba da do da do da do da. Well, what's the blah, 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 blah? I said, can you just play it straight like Blackmore did on Made in Japan? Yeah. So we finally got it, because Yngwie can't really sing, right? Yeah. I mean, he can sing, but it's not, as a singer, he can't follow what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh my God, what note do you want, son? Pick it. So that's what we did. But live, I could do whatever I wanted, because he really didn't care. It was all about him. I mean, we played in front of 55,000 people at Grass Pop with Maiden and Dio. And I did 4 costume changes in an hour just to amuse myself, to see if anybody would notice. Because all he did was just play guitar the whole time. Let's do I Am a Viking. 1 verse, 1 chorus, then a guitar solo for the next 15 minutes. I mean, it was mental, but it was good fun, and it was a good learning experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember when we arrived there, and we'd been on the bus for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. And I got off and went to go to the toilet, and I came back, and the tour manager had given us all our passes and things. And then we went, where are the toilets? I was like, come on, I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
And I had my pass on, and I walked up to the gate, and the guy said, you can go through. Who are you? Where's your pass? He said, I'm Yngwie Malmsteen. Who the fuck are you? And he said, the guy turned around to him and said, I'm the guy that's not letting you go in here until you go back to your bus and get your pass.
Fantastic story. Well, after your 7 years there, you actually, the next big guitarist is Michael Schenker. But when you were with Michael Schenker, and obviously you still, I guess that's still an ongoing story, isn't it? He could easily ring you up and say, "Could you come and sing a song?" Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, was there a difference? This is, as you say, guitarists with a great reputation, depending on or lots of illustrious stories. How did you just fit in singing with Michael that easily? Or was he someone else that said, I want you to do this?
No, it was Michael's very disciplined, right? So if the set is 1.5 hours long, the set is 1.5 hours long. And what he hated me doing was chatting between songs. It's just like, he just wanted bang, 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 bang.
Oh, wow.
Now, and I knew I was doing this interview with you today, so I was running through the memory palaces, because I knew you would ask me some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I was with Michael for 11 years. Wow. And I never once went for dinner with him. I used to hang out with Ritchie at Ritchie's house. I used to hang out with Yngwie at Yngwie's house. I've never even shared a bag of chips with Michael. Michael's a very personal guy, because he's so focused on the music that he does. And that's his complete focus in life. Wow. is to play. And he has no, he doesn't play golf, he doesn't play tennis, he doesn't do anything that I know of through 11 years of working with him, we never sat down and had breakfast in the same hotel. Never did that. Never had the pizza. Never did the curry. Didn't do anything like that. He's sociable, but much less sociable than even Blackmore is, because he just wants his own time and space to do what he needs to do in his head to make the next show the best show that he's ever done. And that's what makes him so glorious, man. I mean, he's such an amazing player. And when we're in the rehearsal situation or the recording situation, he used to come and just sit in a chair in the studio and listen to me do my vocals and go, "That's good. That's good. That one's not good. Do that again." And that's what he did, because he knows what he wants. But he's really is unique and a unique individual. And I like him for that. I love him for that. But he revolves the door like all these guys do, like I said earlier. They just sort of, they move it on. He's got Romero in there now, and before me it was somebody else. And, so he's an extraordinary man.
A question I'd love to ask has just come to me is that musicians are creative people. Usually we're very sensitive people. Sometimes our skin is paper thin. You have to, and you're bearing your soul as a musician. You've played with three characters you've just described there, who have been like, as you say, you never had breakfast with one. If this was like a normal job and your boss, you've worked at the same establishment for 11 years and they've never said anything to you. I mean, you've got to be a certain type of character to be able to move in this kind of sphere and still feel that you're confident that I can do this, I'm part of this. I mean, I'm thinking this question is for new musicians, new people thinking about this. It's not just like five guys, all best mates, going down the pub and then going to write some music and playing some gigs. No. I mean, what you've described is kind of like a sense, a way of work politics that the normal people could not get their head around. And plus, being a creative person, you've got sensitivities, how you feel, your emotions and stuff. Were there times when you were on tour with any of these guitarists where you thought it was difficult, or it was a challenge because you couldn't, as I say, you couldn't sit down and say, we need to have a chat?
No. And I'll give you two. You see, I don't have a fragile ego. What you think of me is not important to me. What anybody out there thinks about me is not important to me. You either enjoy it or you don't. So I don't have to hang around with these guys. And what I do is, when we were recording the Stranger, and sorry, I'm going back to Blackmore again, okay. But we did the Stranger in Us All album for my birthday. What would it have been? 35 maybe. And they gave me a wee bag with moons and things, a wee sort of medieval bag with moons and stars and stuff on it. I just put my ego in that bag. It's not me selling the tickets, man. It's Ritchie Blackmore. It's Yngwie Malmsteen, it's Michael Schenker, and these days it's the name Alcatrazz, so I just do that. I go and I give it to my wife and I say, I'll pick that up when I come back. And of course she hides it for me for 2 weeks, because when you've been away for 2 months, you come back, what being on the road does for you, it infantiles you. Because you can't do anything for yourself, because everything gets done for you.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to do is make lobby calls so the bus doesn't leave without you. Yeah. Be in time for sound check, turn up, know your words, and don't be drunk or stoned. Right? Yeah. That's the four things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And with Yngwie, and I toured longer with him on a bus. I did 3 or 4 American tours with him, and he brought his wife and his child on the bus. Now, that was very, very difficult. That was really difficult because she wanted to rule the roost, not paying attention to the fact that we needed a rest. We needed to be able to just do what we wanted without a 4-year-old or 5-year-old child running around pretending he was Spider-Man. Yeah. You know, so that was really difficult. And we'd do 2 months and I'd go, I'm done with this. And I'd be home for a month. And he'd phone me up and go, we're going to go on tour. I go, okay. You know, because you just need a break from it. But that was those times when Yngwie's family was with us on the bus and she was always around were very difficult because, well, him and I always got on well, you know, but there was always just an element of she didn't like anybody else, him liking anybody else other than her, you know, and that made life kind of difficult. You know, I mean, I used to have a video camera, and it was back in the days when video cameras were very new and we didn't have iPhones, and I would shoot footage, and I've got video footage of her coming on and speaking to him, telling me to shut the camera off. You know, it's like, just sit over there and let your husband enjoy his life and the fun that he's having without you being miserable and coming in and bothering us.
Well, maybe that's why he didn't have any friends around.
Maybe that's why he didn't have any friends around.
Yeah. But before we come on to Alcatrazz, I'm going to ask you a question that hopefully is not difficult to answer. If you had to think of albums that Blackmore played on, and Yngwie and Michael Schenker, which albums would you pick as your favourites that you don't appear on yourself?
Okay. Anything by Blackmore.
Yeah. What would be
anything at all?
Anything.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter.
No.
I know nothing about Yngwie's back catalogue. I only learned the songs I was told to learn.
Fantastic. That's really interesting. So you weren't even curious to go back?
No, not even curious. No, not at all. I mean, I think that, you know, he wouldn't do Heaven Tonight because that was a Joe Lynn Turner song, although he would deny that, right?
Great album,
and it's the same, and it's kind of the same with Michael. I mean, I bought the first Michael Schenker album on white vinyl because I loved Gary Barden's voice. Nothing to do with Michael's guitar playing. You know, I've been through times.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, now this guy's great.
Wow.
I never saw UFO. I never saw Yngwie play live. I never saw UFO play live.
And obviously we started off the conversation with you being in the Deep Purple Appreciation Society.
Yes, of course. That and the Bruce Lee one. But I mean, really, you know, it really wasn't. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, the same with the Scorpions when we had Temple of Rock, which was the band that Michael and I had together. And we wrote some great songs, man. Some terrific songs. And we had Herman and Francis from the Scorpions in there, you know, and I went down for my audition and they started playing Love Drive and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Wow.
No, I don't know. Yeah. It never came across my radar, you know. I mean, the classic UFO songs, you know, my brother loved them. My brother loved them and my mate loved them. Kenny Johnson loved them as well. It never really worked for me. You know, and that's not disrespectful. It's just because I was looking for singers, right? And Phil Mogg's a bit like Frank Sinatra, where he sings in between the spaces on the keyboard, right? It's not, you know, there was nothing I could learn from him. Or not that I couldn't learn.
I know what you mean.
I couldn't do that. Right, I couldn't do that. I could do David Coverdale, I could do Ian Gillan, I could do Glenn Hughes, I could do Lou Gramm, I could do, you know. That's why I never get into Journey. I couldn't do anything like that, you know, which is a completely different spectrum of things. And and that's why I never listened to Marillion. I was in a learning process, and so as far as I'm concerned, Ritchie works with the finest singers ever, and and then there were others that I found that I thought were just, man, God, this, like Lou Gramm. I mean, really, honestly,
So I guess you're obviously someone that's just in the moment. So you join a band and it's whatever's going to happen now. Yeah. Whatever's we're going to play on the new songs for an album, or what's going to be in the set list. Beyond that, you basically you don't go there.
It's really not my bag. I just want to go on stage. I write albums with songs that hopefully can be played live. Now, you can't play them all.
No.
And I learned a lot from working with all these three guys, and I've worked with other great guitar players as well, and I've written great songs with other great guitar players, and other great musicians, but I'm defined by Rainbow, Malmsteen, and Schenker, and hopefully now Alcatrazz as well.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay for me. My ego's in a wee bag. Yes.
Well, Alcatrazz, me personally, you probably, because you haven't gone backwards in time, but obviously I remember Alcatrazz with Graham Bonnet singing God Bless video with back in the early 80s.
That was Steve Vai.
Steve Vai, and that's right. And it was on a Kerrang VHS tape I got somewhere. And
we all have them.
Yeah, Jimmy Waldo and Gary Shee used to be in a band called New England, who were a band I really liked. But this new album by Alcatrazz, from a band that was very kind of American kind of AOR back in the time, is now really full on heavy metal, isn't it? And it's not American heavy metal. It sounds to me, I could be wrong, but it sounds to me very European, very UK centric heavy metal. A bit like I can hear a bit of Accept, Saxon, Priest, bit of Iron Maiden in there as well. Was there a vision that you were going to do a real heavy, full on kind of UK orientated metal album?
I think there was. Joe's so prolific with his writing.
Yeah.
So you go, Joe, and you go, sorry, here's another song. He can just do that because he's so gifted, and his understanding of the song structure really comes from Jimmy, but Joe's the guy that comes up with the riffs, and then they find a way to put it together to deliver to me to do whatever I want to do, and so that worked. And there's always going to be comparisons between No Parole for Rock and Roll and whatever the other ones were called. And again, and it's no disrespect here, man, I don't own any of these albums. I only learned the songs because I had to. I came into the band, knowing who Graham was, obviously, and knowing who Yngwie was or Steve Vai was, obviously, but nobody else. I didn't know Jerry Waldo or Gary Shea or whoever else was there, because it never crossed my path.
Would that be because I know you're not, but I just want to ask this, that you didn't in any way want to be influenced by what had gone before?
No, it never crossed my path back in the 80s. It was the same when I joined Tank. When I joined Tank, they asked me to join Tank, and Algie, as we said earlier, has just died, and they said Tank. I was like, okay. The only thing I knew about Tank was the logo. It was a brilliant logo.
Yeah. I remember it very well.
And I said, well, we want to write a new album. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And I'll go back and listen. Don't do what you do. We're inviting you into the band because we like what you do. And that's exactly what the Alcatrazz guys did as well. Don't go back and listen to this stuff. Why would you want to do that? We're not reinventing the wheel. You can't do that. Guys of our age and our generation and our genre can't reinvent it. We can reinforce it if we want, reinforce that steel, that metal thing. But there's nothing you can really do to change it. And so it's just a case of send me through what you've got, and I will do the best that I can with it. And what we decided to do, and it wasn't, they wanted to make it heavier, and I think we did.
Yeah, you have.
And and it was really a case of just we have the Alcatrazz fans, which leads us to having the Yngwie fans, which leads us to having the Bonnet fans. So, and then of course of the Purple fans and the Rainbow fans. Why don't we just go out there, make a metal album, a heavy rock metal album, and see if we can pull in the Iron Maiden fans, the Judas Priest fans, whatever. And that's what we did, man.
In a way, what you're saying is it's really inspirational in a way, because I think one of the problems with rock fans is that they're so fixated on looking at everything that's gone before, that when anything new comes along, it's very hard to take the blinkers off and accept a new change or a new direction for a band. When actually, think about for when we were younger, you were excited about what the next album would be by your favorite band, because you wondered what they would come up with next. Yeah. Whereas I think, especially with heavy metal, people think, well, I want them to do that again. Yeah. And then I want them to do that again. And I think this album, it opens with the track, is it Little Viper, and the last one, Bring on the Rourke. Those two songs that bookend this album are absolutely in your face rock songs. They're absolutely fantastic. It's a bit like Accept and Firepower, riff from Priest. They're just brilliant. The whole band sounds absolutely shit.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because that was our intention, and what we always do, and what we've done, because I've done 2 albums with them now, and it's really just about, we always write 15 songs or 16 songs, and we record 14 or 15 of them. And then we try to find the ones that sit together. Yeah. And some of them don't sit together. So that one has to go somewhere else. And we did on the last album, V, or 5, depending on how mental people are. We had 4 or 5 songs left over from that. And we thought, well, that's half the next album written. Yeah. But the thing is, because Joe and Jimmy are so prolific in writing and work so well together, Joe comes up with and Jimmy goes, maybe we'll move that bit to here, and maybe this is be better for a chorus, and then they send it to me. There's a song on there called Don't Get Mad, Get Even.
Yeah, great song. Right? Absolutely brilliant song, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was that. Before we went into the studio to do my vocals, that was called Batshit Crazy. And they went, you can't have that. Nobody will play it. Nobody will play it, and nobody can say the words over the radio or anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So one night, I don't know, I must have dreamt it or something. And I remember waking up in the morning and going, right, well, I'm going into the studio tomorrow, and I really want to do this song because it's really good, but they're not having the Batshit Crazy. And I just went in 20 minutes, man. I had written that whole damn thing, And when we went in, when we went into the studio, the first day, it's just down behind Edinburgh Playhouse, right? Mm-hmm. It's a wee studio there, and he was a great engineer, Andrew. And we went in, and I said, right, fire up Batshit Crazy. And they're like, oh, fuck, no. And I sang it, and they went, oh my God, because it was completely different lyrically, melodically. And then adding Girl School on, on the chorus. Yeah. Some smart ass come up with that idea, but it just makes it really, really work. And it's such an accessible song And then when you have Stranger, which is
it's that's your Dio Rainbow track, isn't it?
I thought that was two different songs.
Yeah.
And they just merged them together.
Oh yeah, that's the epic. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because when it came through to me, it was Stranger 1 and Stranger 2. And I was like, okay. So I worked on Stranger 1, got it all together, make it all beautiful, and then Stranger 2. And I'm thinking, okay. So I wrote a completely different thing. I mean, I don't know if they merge or they match or whatever, but it was just, they just took the two of them, cut them up, stuck them together. I'm like, oh my God, it sounds terrific.
No, does it? That's one of my favorite tracks on the album. That is
brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and also I think sometimes when bands pick a name for a track that's after them, like there's a track called Alcatrazz.
Yeah,
you always think, well, this has got to live up to the name of the band, but it does.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's another wonderful song. Another one of my favourites, of which there are many, is Power in Numbers, which, because of Jimmy's keyboard, this is probably the most Purple-esque track on there to me.
Okay.
I love that.
Well, musically it was there, and I had 3 or 4 different versions of it with the same chorus, but 3 or 4 different versions just to try and get it to work. And it was really written about the rush. I was supposed to go and do a 36-date orchestral tour with Uli and Ripper. I think Graham was going to be involved in Russia. And the promoter was writing to me and going, okay, we'll just get you sorted out with this. And I was like, have you no idea what's going on? She said, what do you mean? And I said, well, look, you guys have got 120,000 troops on the border of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And her and I had worked together in Russia and Ukraine and Georgia. She's going, oh, that's just to protect ourselves from the Ukraine invasion of Russia. I'm thinking, you've got no fucking idea. Yeah. And so I just, the minute the first tank or soldier stepped over the border, I just sent a message and said, I'm not coming. And Alcatrazz was supposed to play in Moscow Square, which is different from Red Square. And we were supposed to be doing that. And as soon as that first step went into Ukraine, I just said to the management, I said, I'm not going. Find somebody else, but I ain't going. And it's been, and so that's really what that song is about. Is about, we all have, and it doesn't matter if you're being bullied at school by some arsehole or if you're being bullied at your work by some arsehole. If there's power in numbers, we can stand against all this kind of nonsense. Some of us will not make it. Some of us will. But that's what that was about. And I think it's a powerful song.
Yeah. The whole album is very powerful and very uplifting and life affirming. I think it's one of the best heavy metal albums I've heard for a very long time.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man.
It really, really is. So what are the plans? It's just emerged out into the wild, available on CD and vinyl, and obviously people can stream it as well, but we want them to buy it. And with the modern music business, I mean, for you personally, because you've grown up as I have through vinyl, then CD. Well, obviously, and cassettes, which for some bizarre reason have bubbled back to the surface, and streaming. I mean, do you see the resurgence of vinyl as being like a positive thing for musicians going forwards? Are you happy to see them come back?
I don't know. I was I was down at the opticians 2 days ago. And one of the charity shops I used to like to go into is now something called FOP.
Oh, yeah, that record shop, yeah.
I can't believe how much money they're charging for vinyl.
Yeah.
35 quid. Really?
Yeah.
I don't have a record player. I don't have a record player, and I don't have a CD player either. I don't really listen very much to music.
You said at the start of the interview you don't really listen to music.
I don't.
But I think I think that's really interesting because of that. That means that that's just something you do. You don't listen to it. It's not because of anything to do with your creative aspect to your writing. No, it's just.
I just don't. I don't. I mean, I will stick on Diamond Dogs, or I will. Because I don't have a record collection anymore or a CD collection. It's all digital here.
Yeah.
The last band that I really enjoyed and I bought and I buy their albums is a band called Avatarium from Sweden.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of music that I love. It's what they do. It sounds like Black Sabbath Uriah Heep, but with a girl singing it.
Yeah, that sounds.
But the melodies that she weaves over this sort of doom-laden metal is astonishing. I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know how long I have left here to do this. I'm 63 now, so in 10 years' time, I'll stop doing it when people stop calling me up to do things.
Yeah, because nobody knew, did they, how long this was going to go on for? When we used to, we were in the mid-70s watching a documentary on The Who where it said they've been together 10 years. And we were thinking, wow, a band's been together 10 years.
Yeah.
They're nearly 40 now. And now we've got like Ian Hunter's just released an album at age 83. You should get what point? People, but I've seen lots of other bands from the mid-80s saying, that's it, I'm done. And now in their mid-60s.
Well, I think it's when your audience dies off. I think, the thing about bands like Maiden and AC/DC and Kiss is that it doesn't matter if they're 500 years old. It doesn't make any difference because for some reason they managed to attract the 15, 16, 18, 20-year-olds.
Yeah, they replenish the audience.
And there are some bands who, where the audience will be as old as the band members, so they won't be around very long. I mean, do you think? I'm not being rude here. Well, I am. But do you really think that any 15-year-old is going to go out and go, my God, I can't wait to hear Genesis' Lamb Lies Down on Broadway played live? It just doesn't. There's an era. There's eras,
Yeah.
I mean, I went and saw James Taylor about 6-8 months ago, and I was probably the youngest person there.
Yeah.
But so what we're trying to do with Alcatrazz is to bring. Can we get younger people to come into this and enjoy it and buy into what we're trying to do?
I believe you can, because I think the sound of a guitar through a Marshall amp turned up to 11 with a singer with his hands on his hips, with his throwing his head back and singing "Bring on the Rock" is going to appeal to anybody.
Yeah,
the world needs that.
Well, I think I don't think you're wrong, and I think Stump's a brilliant guitar player. He's kind of he's known kind of as a wee bit of a shred master. And people love him for that. But my God, he's got more in his pot than just that, and it shows on this new album. His guitar playing is astonishing. Larry's drums, it's the first album Larry's done with us, and he's from New Zealand, so he's got a funny accent, which is kind of annoying. He messes his vowels up. Why did he do that? Aussies and Kiwis, their vowels are just all over the place, and it just annoys me. But he plays drums really well. I don't talk to him very much.
So where can people? Are you planning a tour? I mean, is that the plan?
We're going to be going to South America and America. We just finished touring in February there over here in the UK, and the record company brought the album forward from September to now. I had no say in that. We have no work during the summer. We've got one festival in France. I don't know why they did that. It's not for me to question. These guys know what they're doing. But no, we don't have anything over here. We've got the US and South America, and that's kind of pretty much what we have. And then, but what we're doing now is, I wrote to all the guys in the band the other day and thanked them for inviting me into the fold, and told them how well they had all done, and ruffled a few feathers and things, and then just said, so fuck off and start writing the next album. So the stuff's already coming in, so we'll be starting to write the new album, in the next couple of months.
Have you got, are you doing, while you've got this kind of it's not so much downtime if you're working on what could be the follow-up album already, but have you got other projects going on at the same time?
I just do. I'm going to. I leave for Greece on Thursday. I'm doing a Harley Davidson festival under my own name and with some fantastic Greek players. I'm going to go and do that, and then I come back, and then I'm going off to Bulgaria to do some shows with some great Bulgarian musicians, and then I'm coming, and then what else am I doing? I'm supposed to go to South America as well to do, Peru and Argentina and Brazil and Colombia and places. So we'll see if that comes off. But I'm a singer. I like to work. I'm not precious, man. I'm not a superstar. I'm a working musician, like most of them out there. And I'm going out to do a tour with some Italian guys just before Christmas, with Rowan Robertson, who used to be in Dio's band, or Lock Up the Wolves. So I'm doing I'm doing 2 weeks. I'm doing 2 weeks with him in December. Then we have Christmas off. Then I'm going to go and do 2 weeks with him again, and that's all through Europe. That's the Czech Republic and Poland and Bratislava and whatever.
Yeah. So finally, coming to the end of the interview now. But you don't listen to anything that's gone before. But when you go out on your own under your own name, and you put together that set list, it must pull together the history of Doogie White through the times.
Yes, it does.
So what songs are always in your set list when it's you going out?
Okay. Well, it changes because every time I do a new album.
That makes sense.
Then, now Blackmore didn't play on the last tour he did with the Less Than Rainbow, except for Romero. So I do Black Masquerade.
Oh yes, great.
I do RAL.
Fantastic.
I do Too Late for Tears. From the Schenker collection, I do Take Me to the Church and a couple of others. I can't remember what they're called. And then I do a couple of Tank things as well. That I wrote. And then I do Cornerstone, which was I do a couple of Cornerstone songs. And then I chuck in a couple from a solo album, which was called As Yet Untitled. I chuck a couple of them in. I only do songs that I was on the solo stuff. I only do songs that I wrote. And the only one out of all of them that I didn't write is Ariel. But I helped with the creative process of the song. It was an acoustic song that Candy and Ritchie had written for, well, it would have been a Blackmore's Night song.
Yeah.
But I managed to get them to put the riffs together the way that they needed to be. But it's Candy's lyrics and sorry, go on.
It's that song again. I'm just talking as a fan.
Yeah.
That song to me is made because it is powerful and so memorable to me as one of the last Rainbow classics because of your performance, because of your phrasing of the words and how the words come to fruition and in my mind, in my imagination, because of how you deliver that. I mean, was that your melody, or was it already? Did it already exist?
Candy and Ritchie get credit for writing it. Candy wrote the lyrics. I just adapted the rough vocal melody she gave me to do it, and I this will sound mental, but I got bits of tape. I was recording Ritchie while he was doing this, and he was just jamming, and I just got the tape bits and put them together to make the riff and stuff up, because it was in 3 or 4 different parts, and my job was to record everything. And so he was just playing on the stage himself, and I got it and just went, this is a great riff, man, and we should have this bit here. And he just went for it, and it kind of worked. And if you listen to, I still have the tapes of the original version, but I just had to take it somewhere else. I took it somewhere else, but it's a bit like Joe Cocker taking Little Help from a Friend. He didn't write it, but he just did something different. He
made it his own, yeah.
And that's kind of what I did with the song. So to answer your question in a sort of long form way, is that yes, I do all these songs, but I'm involved. I wrote them all with other people, except for Ariel, which I kind of made my own, and Temple of the King, which I kind of made my own now as well.
You have indeed, and I think your, as I said at the start of the interview, I think your interpretation of that,
thank you,
is beautiful.
I think so too. I think so too, and we play it at the end of the Alcatrazz. I don't know whether we'll do it in the next tour, but we've always played it at the end of the Alcatrazz tour as well.
Oh wow!
But it's so emotionally charged, and you can I can just look out there, and I've never seen so many metal men with tears running down their face. Unashamedly.
I know how they feel, because the other thing I remember buying the original Ritchie Blackmore Rainbow album in 1975 from where I lived in Birmingham, in Solihull Mill Square, from W.H. Smith's. And I'll be honest that as I went through the album, Temple of the King was the track I thought, oh, ballad, and just kind of moved on. Yeah. But over the years, as we get older as rock fans or whatever, or musicians, the song has taken on a totally different feel. And I think the way that it came about with that last incarnation of Rainbow with you in it, watching that the DVD, I mean, because Blackmore used it as a platform to really show how he could play.
Exactly.
Just stood still without, no throwing shapes, just play and use the way you sang it. I think it became laser etched in lots of blokes of a certain age's brain. So that whenever we see it played live now with yourself, good self singing it, we start to cry.
Yeah. It was. I just finished a solo tour through Europe, and I could look out into the audience, and you just tell them, I don't know what the song's about.
No.
Right? I've got no idea what the song's about, but it's the emotion that comes from the performance of the musicians on the stage. And I look out there and I say to them, this is what we're going to do, and this is. This is for those we've loved and lost.
Yeah. Because you don't need, sometimes you don't need to know what the words mean, but the sound that the voice makes and the guitar makes almost creates a new dialogue in the listener's head.
Absolutely. And it really does. And the audiences respond so beautifully, and I have, big hairy bikers and wee 19-year-old girls in frilly dresses coming up, and they've got tears in their eyes, because what I try to do when I do the solo shows, is come off stage, go and wipe my face, comb my hair, go out and see, however many people it is that have come to see me play, and go and share some time with them. And man, I should actually just on the I don't have merch. I don't do merch, right? It's a Scottish thing, but I should really have a merch table just with handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
Oh, so they can all just dab their eyes.
Yeah, embroidered with Doogie White in the corner. Yeah.
I was thinking about paper ones for boots, man.
We want souvenirs.
Dear God.
Well, Doogie, where's the best place for people to find out about what you're currently up to? Do you have
I just have a Facebook. I have a Facebook site. I've got a new website that's under construction, but it's not ready yet.
Okay.
So it's just Doogie White. I mean, it'll be a wee picture of me in the corner looking handsome, because we always put handsome pictures up, don't we?
We do.
It's a bit like going on a dating site, and then you turn up and it's like, oh my God, is that really you? So it'll be a wee handsome picture of me on the corner. It's Doogie White.
Okay,
that's all it is, really.
Well, I shall stick that in the description on the YouTube channel and on the website as well, so people can find you. And so hopefully you'll be inundated with new fans wanting to know whether they need any paper handkerchiefs to listen to you do Temple of the
Okay. Well, listen, Anne, that's been lovely. It's been lovely to chat to you. And thank you for the interesting questions as well. People have questions and they just ask them, then they go to the next one. But I mean, that was a conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. So, thanks very much, Doogie. Thanks very much, and best of luck with the album.
Thank you.
Which is out now, everybody, and you need to buy it. Here it is.
There's the vinyl version.
There's the vinyl version.
Can you see it?
Yeah, that's it. Hold.
Oh, it's nearly.
Yeah, nearly. That's okay. I'll put a picture of it up in the description.
And the happy boys in the back as well.
Of course. Okay.
But that was magic. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much.
Are you going to go and play Made in Japan now?
Probably not at the moment. I'll probably. Okay. I think I'll listen to the new Alcatrazz album.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Well, thanks very much, Doogie, and I'll hopefully talk to you again soon. So thank you very much for watching the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston, and a special thanks to my guest, Doogie White. And don't forget to listen to the new Alcatrazz album. It's absolutely fantastic. I'll put details below in the description and on the Now Spinning Magazine website to how to get in touch with Doogie White if you want to know more about his career and other albums he's played on. But that was absolutely wonderful conversation. So I hope you really enjoyed that. So check out the Now Spinning Magazine website at nowspinning.co.uk to make sure you keep up to date with all our latest posts and videos. And of course, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel. So take care, everybody. Keep spinning those discs. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. And I shall see you very, very soon.